The Sooners are 2-0 and now the number 3 ranked team in the country. Good morning from the Dodge Sports Desk. I'm Mike Koehler, and welcome to the latest edition of OU Football with Jake Trotter. Sooners are coming off an impressive 52-26 win over Cincinnati in what was supposed to be their toughest non-conference test of the season. Jake, obviously the first question has to be about Ryan Broyles. He had the breakout performance on Saturday. In terms of really surprised, somewhat surprised, or not surprised at all, what was your impression of what the Sooners' reaction was to how he played on Saturday?
I was a little surprised that he did so well. Although we've been hearing all the way back from December of last year that this guy's going to be a big playmaker for this offense if he ever makes it to the field. And we saw he's got all the moves. He can catch the ball. He can get open. He's a really nice asset to an offense that really didn't need another weapon.
How's that all going to sort itself out now? You know, if you're Sam Bradford and you're kind of clicking up your options, you know, where does it rank kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 with him as far as receivers go when you throw Broyles into the mix?
Well, it just depends, I think, in a lot of scenarios. But what it does is it allows them to go to that empty set a lot because Broyles can basically play on one of the slots on the either side. When you have Quentin Chaney out there, he doesn't really fit in that slot mode as well as Broyles really thrived in it on Saturday. So if you're looking for what's going to maybe change the offense too, I would see Quentin Chaney's reps going down considerably after this weekend because Broyles is going to get those snaps. I mean, he proved that they got to get the ball in his hands because he's one of the guys on that team that can make things happen when he has it.
But Johnson and Iglesias are still kind of the first two options, and then you go to Broyles. And then you got two good tight ends too. So.
Right. Well, and again, it depends what formation they're running. I think a lot of times when they were in that empty and maybe the 4 wide with the running back in the backfield, they were looking for Broyles a little bit because he runs those underneath routes so well. A lot like Manny Johnson has made a career off doing. Although you could make the argument that Broyles can do more after the catch than Manny can. But it just depends. Joaquin and Manny are still their top 2 wideouts, but you throw in Broyles and he's kind of this X factor that is going to be hard to account for in a lot of formations.
In that first series, you kind of wrote about this on Sunday. Was that kind of a real good look at what that no huddle can do? Because they ate up about 80 yards in about 2 minutes and really went down in a real good clip.
Here's what's hard about stopping Oklahoma, I think, is that you're right. They went right down the field in the no huddle quickly, but they were throwing out all kinds of looks, and they didn't sub once on that first drive that I can remember. I mean, they went from an I formation, then they would go to 1 back, then they'd go to empty, and Broyles' versatility only enhances that quite a bit. So when you're having to play basically with the same defenders, and you have to be versatile enough to cover a 5 wide and then go back and cover a power set, that's really difficult. Not a lot of defense can excel at that, and OU exploited that early. And you saw two quick touchdowns.
Let's talk a little bit about the rankings. OU leapfrogs Ohio State. They're number 3 in the country now, behind USC and Georgia. How much movement is there going to be up there, the rest of the season? Is this kind of where they need to position themselves for a run in the national title? Or are they kind of at a ceiling? What do you see happening there?
Oh, I think it all kind of takes care of itself. Obviously, the higher you are, the better you're going to be off. We've seen that with LSU last year. They were a top 5 team to begin with and ended up, going to the national championship despite having 2 losses. But people forget the AP poll doesn't matter, and really the coaches poll to some degree at this point doesn't matter all that much. So the BCS rankings are what matter, and they're not going to come up for another month or 2. So it's too early to really worry about jockeying for position. I mean, if you beat a USC or beat Ohio State or beat a Texas, you're going to be taken care of in the polls.
So do you see OU still in good shape, though, with playing Cincinnati, with playing Washington, as far as quality opponents and all that stuff?
Yeah, they're fine. And what's going to help OU, I think, to some degree, is Ohio State and USC are basically knock one another out of the picture next weekend when they play each other. So basically, you're going to have either a Pac-10 or a Big Ten team, and then the SEC, and then you have Oklahoma, of course. So that's going to help them out. It's almost like an elimination game, although that team could come back and maybe creep back into the picture if they come back and run the table. But obviously the winner of that game is going to have a huge jump over everybody else because they're going to have the best win of the year by far.
So did Georgia almost have the tougher road because they have to go through the SEC, where it always seems like nobody can run through there undefeated?
Not only that, they play Arizona State, which is going to be a really tough ball game. They got a lot of unbelievable. I mean, their schedule, you couldn't have put together a tougher schedule if you tried. I mean, they got to, they got to play Florida, they got to play LSU, they got to play Auburn, Tennessee. So it's going to be very difficult for Georgia to go undefeated, and that's why I didn't pick them to go to the national championship game.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about Saturday. OU goes to Seattle to play against Washington. Pac-10 road games have always seemed to be a little bit of a twilight zone for OU. Obviously, the Oregon loss.
Twilight zone for everyone lately.
Obviously, the Oregon loss, the loss to UCLA a couple years ago. What should OU be watching out for against Washington? They kind of got the job on Saturday with losing that game on a penalty. What do you see happening with Washington?
I think the biggest thing OU wants to do is not put themselves in a situation where that can happen. Mm-hmm. Knock the game out early. Get off to the kind of start they did against Cincinnati. I think if they get up 14-21 to nothing, I think the game, UW with the way that they've started this year is probably going to have a hard time not folding in that particular point. So OU just needs to go in and dominate early, and I think they'll be able to coast a little bit throughout the game. But if they struggle early and Washington hits a couple big plays, mm-hmm. and then all of a sudden you're relying on officiating to make that call, then you're asking to lose.
Right. Jake Locker, their quarterback, is a really good guy, but he doesn't have much around him. Is that the story with UW?
Yeah, and he reminds me of a right-handed Tim Tebow in a lot of ways. If you're looking for a comparison, their running styles are very similar. Tebow's not going to make anybody miss, but he might run over you or run past you. And Locker's the same way, and he has a cannon for an arm as well. But you're right, they don't have any experience. I think they lost 5 senior receivers last year. They really don't have a proven running back. So their offensive line is okay, but they have some question marks on offense. And Locker's basically doing it by himself right now.
Alrighty, thanks, Jake. That does it for this edition of OU Football with Jake Trotter. Be sure to watch Jake on Friday on the new edition of the Bedlam Nation Conversation. And for all the news and analysis of OU football, stay with the best coverage team in the state at newsok.com, newsok.tv, and every day in the Oklahoman.